Hi there, and welcome to the Sports 2000 podcast. This series takes you behind the scenes at this British sports car prototype series that includes Durotex and Pintos. I'm Sue Stockdale, and I talk to some of the people involved in the Sports 2000 community, giving you an insight into why Sports 2000 is sometimes called motorsport's best kept secret. And today I'm speaking to Terry Rayner, who's Commercial Director of Locks4Vans, who are sponsoring the Sports 2000 Championship this year. Terry's a self-confessed petrol head, and he's using his extensive knowledge of the commercial vehicle market to spearhead the business growth plans of the UK's leading van security company, Locks4Vans. Welcome to the podcast, Terry. It's great to speak to you.
Hi, Sue. Yeah, good to speak to you too.
Now, when I read that you're a self-confessed petrol head, that really pricks my curiosity.
Dear.
Tell me more about how that manifests itself in your life.
Oh, gosh. From quite early days, really. The family were born and bred into Ford Motor Company. My grandfather worked for Ford, so it's one of those things growing up as a grandchild. Everyone was talking about cars. And so, yeah, cars from an early age, then probably too early. I think I owned my first car at certainly 14, I think, working on it in the back garden, and it's carried on since. So from all sorts of things, and in and out of being a watcher rather than a doer on motorsport, but been all over the country and a few more glamorous places abroad to watch Grand Prix and things like that as well. So yeah, sort of cars, bikes as well, and latterly in my career, commercial vehicles, vans have played a heavy part in my life, really.
Well, that's a nice way to bring us round to finding out more about Locks4Vans, where you're the commercial director. And as I mentioned a minute ago, they're sponsoring the Sports 2000 Championship this year. So tell the listener a little bit more about what Locks4Vans is all about. What's the history of the company?
Yeah, it's interesting because we're just about next year to celebrate our 20th year, but so the team within Locks4Vans have been around for a little bit longer. We're here to help the consumer prevent criminal attack on their commercial vehicles. It's a huge problem. It's not always goes reported, but generally consumers or customers think about insuring a vehicle and making sure that vehicle can't be stolen. But often the biggest problem is the goods within the vehicle being attacked and the goods going missing. And that can be from anything from pharmaceuticals, where perhaps somewhere in the region of £500,000 worth, to down to perhaps the local supermarket delivery van that gets broken into and your shopping goes missing. So, but in the middle there's people's livelihoods and lives. And for instance, many tradesmen would have their tools in the van and could reach to many thousands of pounds, which they can't always get insured. And it's a frustrating business that unfortunately we're in as much as trying to help that incident be prevented. The company was started in 2003 from pretty humble beginnings, really. And a couple of people, and Chris Battersby, who's the founder and the owner of the company, he was a locksmith, and most locksmiths come from household use. So just putting a lock in your front door and in your back door. And that then sort of migrated into vehicles and how those locks could be reapplied and redeveloped for use in commercial vehicles. And that was how the business was born. It's undergone many changes over the last decade or so as well. And in recent times, there's a new team been brought in alongside Chris of professionals really that are embedded in the industry already. We've got an FD from Nokia, telecommunications area. We've got a HR director from the IT industry, myself, ex-Ford commercial vehicle director, and we've got a guy from Honda who recently closed their operations in Swindon. He's our operations quality and process manager. So team of executive sort of professionals that have come in and moving this business forward. So yeah, humble beginnings. We've now got 70 staff and it's a multi-million-pound business. So yeah, there's a lot to think about, really.
Wow, that's impressive growth for the business. And with those aspirations that I imagine that the business has, what got the company interested in supporting the Sports 2000 Championship? Of course, there'll be a lot of commercial vehicles that drivers and teams are using, but I'm imagining it's a little bit more than that.
Yeah, it's a bit more. I mean, I guess if you're looking deep for a synergy, the synergy is fast-paced and innovate. We always look at motorsport as being the innovators, that what starts in motorsport ends up on our roads. And the fast-paced bit, well, I think that goes without saying, really. But I think that's where our synergies start. We were lucky enough to sponsor, I think it kicked off in the COVID years, a chap called Giles Billingsley that was in the Sports 2000 arena. I think the first year at COVID, I think the series struggled, but in last year he came fifth. And it sort of whet our appetite really for more could we do with this. Say we're fast paced and innovative, but we have to think about the industry that we're in at the moment. And the industry that we're in means that tomorrow there could be a completely new attack on a vehicle that we hadn't anticipated. And so we have to quickly deal with that. We have to be nimble. We have to change things that we do. And then we innovate around that to try and prevent that happening again and try and think ahead of the criminal. And I think it's those links, that fast pace and being nimble and dynamic, really, that we felt that the synergy lied. But I think going back to your original quote, and I'm a little bit embarrassed to call myself a petrol head, really, but we're all petrol heads, really, I think, in that. And I think it was the opportunity to link up with like-minded people that are in that same space. They may not be van owners, they may not have anything to do with that industry whatsoever, but it's just one conversation can spark a thought and a discussion and lead to something else. So we saw it having a lot of synergy, but equally a chance to speak to like-minded people, but in a sort of relevant arena, really. So I think that was largely our thinking around it. But many other things have grown from that since, and we've certainly got plans to build upon that as well.
That sounds really exciting, Terry, and I can understand and be reminded about the fast-paced and nimble aspects even within the Sports 2000 Championship. And in terms of how you innovate within your business, it's easy to say, oh, we innovate. How's it actually done? What are people doing to make sure that they are ahead, if you like, of the criminals?
Yeah, good question. I think generally pretty much every product you can think of now, whether it's in our industry or not, it's trying to keep complexity down, to try and make one size fits all. That helps the business model because you've got one product that you could sell to all different customers. It sort of doesn't work that way with us because everyone's got a different van, everyone's got a different use. So you may have a white transit van, but you could be a refrigerated use where you're taking food around, or you could be a carpenter. Two completely different uses, two completely different sets of requirements for that. So where we innovate, really, we've opened up our own innovation centre. We are self-sufficient. So effectively, if we see a problem or a challenge to what we know is already there, we'll prototype ourselves. We've got 3D equipment. We'll 3D print things. We'll do we've got our own workshop with our own fabricators where we'll make things physically. We've got our own CAD design team and we'll produce a prototype on a van in our own workshop there and then. That may be different for a short wheelbase transit, there will be a long wheelbase transit, or a Vivaro will be different from a dispatch. So everything is tailored differently. The bit that differentiates us again is we've got our own testing equipment. So we spend a lot of money testing things here. So we could test in an environment that could be replicated anywhere around the world. So down into minus 40 degrees up to plus 60 degrees, whether it's in a dusty environment or a salt-ridden environment. So that's all in-house. And that's all before the product then goes to market and gets trialed. So we're certainly different, I think, in that space. And that's why people come to us, really. They know they're not going to get a one-size-fits-all product, but something that's more tailored to their needs and a little bit more relevant. Does that mean we keep thousands and thousands on the shelf? No, because that goes out of date very quickly. So we have to be nimble in that sense and make sure that we keep replenishing. So yeah, and I think that's the exciting bit when to get the opportunity to be in front of, as I say, like-minded people in that arena is to see where those discussions could go. It make us think in other arenas. And most certainly of late, we're thinking about other industries like leisure and sport, for instance. And as you said earlier, I know in the car park at Silverstone or at Donington or at Thruxton, there will be a load of vans. And some of those will have equipment in the back. And I'm pretty certain that a few of those will have proper security on. So yeah, we will be taking that opportunity unashamedly to have those discussions. But probably most just to provoke some ideas in ourselves so we can come away with a few things to think about.
And I think that idea about innovation and tailoring, customizing what you're doing for potential different markets and different types of vans. I'm just thinking also a couple of the guests I've spoken to already talk about using simulators to practice for unique circuits when they're preparing for a race.
Absolutely. Yeah, very much so. That is very big on our agenda at the moment, actually. And I'm smiling slightly because we were only talking about that this morning. We've got our own simulation programs where no longer do you have to have all of this mechanical testing rigs these days where you can test the end result, but the journey to that end result can be done in a simulation environment, which is very high on our agenda. So we're trialing some processes now in that sphere, which will speed up that level of product development incredibly. There's one thing I need to say that I've not mentioned it yet. Apart from everything else, we plan to have a bit of fun with this because we mustn't forget that this is good fun watching motorsport. And I know our customers are keen to join us at these events, and our staff are chomping at the bit to come along as well. So that's going to be a problem that we don't end up having to shut the business because everyone wants to come along. But the plan very much is to use this for a bit of fun as well. We see the opportunities for a bit of team building, and we haven't done it yet. We haven't been around a circuit in a car yet, but I can assure you we'll be looking to do that. That's for sure, because this is exciting. It's good fun, and I can't think of a better way to spend a weekend when it's nice and sunny, sitting on the grass banks watching the cars whiz by.
That sounds fantastic, Terry. And I was just thinking if the listener is showing up either as a driver or a guest that supports the whole championship, sounds like they'll be able to find some of the Locks4Vans people at each race or some of the races during the year.
Absolutely. We'll bring some of our products along as well. So I couldn't explain exactly how we'll do that yet, but we'll make ourselves known for certain. And I think the Locks4Vans team will be quite obvious they'll be dressed in the livery that the cars are dressed in as well. So a nice sort of, I call it orange, but I think the team called it bronze. But hey, nevertheless, they'll be noticed, that's for sure.
Fantastic. Well, I'm sure our listener will be able to spot all of your company people there with their bronze or orange coloured livery on their clothing. If people want to find out more about Locks4Vans in general, how might they be able to do that, Terry?
Yeah, easy one, really. So, I mean, we're on all the social medias, so Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and so on, by typing in Locks4Vans. That's locks with the numero 4 vans. But our website, locks4vans.co.uk, again, it's locks spelled out with 4 as a numeral and vans, where we've always got our products updated, and they can subscribe to the newsletters as well, where we provide information out on what we're doing, new products, and so on. So welcome the opportunity to have dialogue with customers, often getting emails in of suggestions, or perhaps just the individual person that we had last week, in fact, that's got their motorhome that's traveling around the country, a single lady on her own, just needs to feel more secure in a motorhome. And we brought that into the business here and made sure it had additional locks on that she could actually feel secure when she's sleeping overnight in that. So it's not all about 1,000 van fleet that's going to go up and around the country. It comes right down to the individual as well. So hopefully we'll be able to engage with a few of those in that range when we're out and about around the circuits this year.
Been really useful to hear all these different examples you've given us, Terry, of how your products can really support individuals and companies. I hope to see you at one of the circuits during the year, and I'm sure I speak for the Sports 2000 Championship in that they are very grateful for your sponsorship and support.
Thank you very much, and I look forward to meeting you in person.
And if you're enjoying this episode, then why not go on over to our back catalogue? We now have over 15 episodes featuring drivers, officials and supporters of the Sports 2000 Championship. You can find them all by going to the Sports 2000 website, sports2000.co.uk. Now on to our second guest, another one of our sponsors of the Sports 2000 Championship, James Wills from Raceparts. Welcome to the podcast, James.
Thank you.
I know you've got over 15 years of experience in supporting competition cars and motorcycles at all levels, from club racing to MotoGP and Formula One, I understand.
That's right, yeah, absolutely. Worked in the motorsport industry for over 20 years now, and yeah, I've been at Raceparts for 6 or 7 years.
And what is it you enjoy about working in that industry, first of all?
I think a motorsport anorak, is probably the best way of describing it. Always followed the sport, participated from a very young age. So we grew up in a motorsporting family who took part in club motorsport. So yeah, it was a natural evolution to start working 9 to 5 on it, really.
And what did you drive yourself then when you said your family participated? Did you race a car?
Well, initially both my parents competed in hill climbing and sprinting down in the southwest, and my godfather prepared and built racing cars when I was a kid and looked after all sorts of exotic stuff for a local collector. I now take part myself doing sort of hill climbs and sprints in the Southwest Championships. So, yeah, we're pretty well immersed in this great sport of ours.
Fantastic. And for those that haven't come across Raceparts before, any of our listeners, which I'm sure are few and far between, what does Raceparts do?
Raceparts are basically a supplier of all motorsport components. Any part of a racing car or racing bike, pretty much other than chassis or engine blocks, we can supply, from club racing to the home builder, right the way up to Formula One, WEC, World Rally. Basically got all bases covered. Everything from nuts and bolts to camshafts or crankshafts, no problem at all.
So I'm imagining either a ginormous warehouse somewhere or a very efficient logistics system.
Probably somewhere in the middle of those two. Yeah, we're a pretty efficient organisation. We get an awful lot done from pretty small premises. But yeah, we've got a great team of enthusiastic people, and we do what we need to do, that's for sure.
It's fantastic, of course, that Raceparts are one of the supporters of the Sports 2000 Championships this year. I'm wondering, why did they want to partner with Sports 2000?
Well, for us, one of the great things about Sports 2 is that it's one of the few places in motorsport where there's still some evolution and development of the cars going on. And there's so many one-make formulas, but the great thing about Sports 2 is the variety and the individuality of the cars and the people taking part. There's so many people building their own cars, and that's just fantastic. It's where our sport came from, it's where it evolved from, and there's not enough of it today.
That sense of innovation, in a way, that you're describing perhaps there, James, which is interestingly what one of our other sponsors we've interviewed for this podcast has already said, in terms of just change. I'm wondering, what are the innovations, if any, and I'm sure there are many, within Raceparts? How do you keep progressing forward within the business and innovating?
It's a constant challenge, really, because technology in this sport never stands still. And it's something that we all have to keep on top of. We've got the current, in professional motorsport, the thing at the moment is electrification and hybridization of cars and of systems. And so, yeah, it is something that we need to keep on top of. And I think the enthusiasm that we have in our team, we each have our own little niches, but we have a really good overview of the sport and of the products that we sell. So the fact that we're enthusiasts ourselves, we take part in the sport ourselves, and that means that we can really keep ourselves at the cutting edge and keep on top of developments and progress as it happens.
So there's not just one person responsible for innovation. It sounds like everybody in the business has got a responsibility because they've got an interest. That's
right, yeah. We've all got our own little niches, but also, ultimately, we're motorsport enthusiasts, and we make sure we all know our product ranges and we know what we're doing, and we try to keep on top of that side of things.
In terms of Sports 2000, James, are you the specialist in that within Raceparts, or who's the person that knows about Sports 2000?
There's a couple of us. I've been watching Sports 2 for years, going to the circuits as a spectator. Got a mate who ran a Sports 2 car on the hills. So, yeah, I know a little bit about it myself. But we've also Ian, who's in the office, who takes part in 750 Formula. So he's got a great knowledge of sports racing cars generally, and how they work and how they operate. Matt, who's another guy in the office. He really knows his onions on all sorts of club motorsport. So, yeah, there's not just one contact. You could call into any of us in the office, and we'd all have a fair idea of what you're talking about and what it is that you need, I think.
It sounds like there's certainly people who know at the end of a telephone if somebody in the championship that's part of the Sports 2000 club has an issue with their car.
Yeah, that's right. We've all got a very strong overview of how a racing car works and how it ticks. So yeah, I like to think that if you call in, ask the question, the person immediately doesn't answer it, you'll know exactly who you do need to speak to. So.
And of course, the important question is then, how do people find Raceparts on the internet?
Either over the telephone or via the net. We're a team of guys sat waiting for the phone to ring, no problem there. And also at race.parts, www.race.parts. Also through our social media, through Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, we're covered on all three of those. So look us up and give us a follow.
So perhaps we might see you at one of the upcoming race meetings throughout the year.
Definitely, yeah. Really looking forward to getting into the paddock and meeting some of the competitors and some of the crews there. It'd be great.
It's been great to speak to you today, James, and thank you again for Raceparts supporting the championship.
Really appreciate it. We sponsor the Sports 2 series in the States as well, so it's a really nice sort of combination for us through our US office and through our UK office. So looking forward to working with you guys.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed hearing from some of the sponsors that are supporting the Sports 2000 Championship this year. And if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, please spread the word by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or the platform that you may use to listen to this. And tell your friends about us too. Remember, you can connect with Sports 2000 on Facebook, Instagram or Twitter, and we shall put the links to the website in the show notes. Next time, I'll be talking to L'Équipe Roast Beef, the team from Sports 2000 that competed in an endurance 24-hour race last year. I do hope you will join me then to find out all about it.